In American studies, you will do a lot of writing, and at least half the time that writing will be about American history. So, I wanted to start the year by looking at some specific writing techniques that you can use for responding to history questions. And in this slideshow, we're going to look at techniques for both conceiving of a response, that is, planning a response, and then actually composing and writing that response. It's always a good idea to brainstorm a response before you actually start writing it. Whether you're writing on a test, a quiz, or you're just writing on a homework activity or in your own notes, brainstorming is going to help focus that response, and it's just good writing practice. I have a two-step process for conceiving a response to a history question. Start off by listing what you know, and then make a generalization from that list. Listing what you know is exactly what it sounds like. You start by considering what it is you're being asked in the question that you have, and then you just list all the key terms, events, people, places, concept, texts even that you can think of that are related to what you're being asked. Make sure you don't get carried away though. Stick to the topic at hand because a whole bunch of irrelevant information isn't going to help you. Let's look at an example. Say you were given this question. Describe one way in which the diversity of Native American cultures had developed by the 1940s. You'd want to start by just listing everything that you remember from your reading that pertains to that question. The differences between South American and North American peoples, that is, the differences in languages, things like that. You can see I've produced a list there on the right. From your list of what you know, you can then make a generalization about that list. A generalization is just a general idea or principle drawn from individual instances or examples. So look at the list you created and look for any patterns or connections that you see, and then draw a conclusion based on the question you're asked. Here's a generalization that I made based on the list of things I knew and the question that I was asked. Native cultures with more developed farming systems built more extensive settlements and structures than did those with less developed or no systems of farming. Once you've brainstormed enough to actually get a generalization, you can start writing your response. When you write a response, you always want to start with a claim that answers the question, then support that claim with the idea in your generalization. You also then want to support your generalization with evidence. And the evidence you choose should be specific, relevant examples from history or from whatever it is that you're drawing from. By specific, I mean it needs to be as precise as possible and exact as possible. By relevant, it means that all the evidence you choose needs to be pertinent to the topic at hand. You never want to include irrelevant information just to prove that you know it. So if I were responding to our question here, I might start with a claim like this. One way in which the diversity of Native American cultures had developed by the 1490s was in the different ways Native peoples built structures and settlements depending on their means of producing food. I now need to back up my claim with the generalization that I came to earlier. Those peoples with more developed farming systems built more extensive settlements and structures than did those with less developed or no systems of farming. Then finally, I want to illustrate my generalization with specific relevant examples. The Anasazi, for example, who developed irrigation systems to support their cultivation of corn, built large villages of multi-storied buildings. The Pueblo people depended on similar agricultural techniques to sustain themselves, and so on and so forth with the remainder of my examples. When it comes to supplying specific relevant evidence, how do you know when you have enough? Well, as a general rule, it's awfully hard to support a generalization with only one example. Two examples makes a generalization much stronger. Even more than two makes it stronger than that. So you just want to use a number of examples that fully proves your idea and always keep in mind whatever expectations the assignment has. There could be a specific word count given. That could help you determine how many examples to give. The time limit you have could also determine our expectations on the assignment. Also the kind of task. If we're looking for just some practice in class, that wouldn't require as extensive of examples as on maybe a major exam or a timed essay. So in the end, it's up to you and you have to use your best judgment, but more examples are better than fewer.